All right, and I do have 11:02, so let's go ahead and kick it off. Thanks everyone for joining. This is Army webinar series number 11 of 11, the last one, but we're really excited to talk about our new CAM offering that we have, the Continuous Authorization and Monitoring. Today with us on the meeting, we have myself. My name's Casey Johnson. I'm second on the list right there. Today we're going to have myself and Matt Fisher talking. But both John and Dan are here to provide help. Dan is also our primary point of contact in case you have any questions or have any follow-up on what we showed today. You can see his emails there, and we can surely share the deck with you as well. So yeah, it's daniel.coons@servicenow.com. And let's go ahead and jump right in. So high-level overview, we're going to go through the agenda, some high-level stuff pretty quickly. Then we're going to go ahead and just jump into the CAM offering. And really what we're here for is to get to a demo. And we're hoping to do that today in just under an hour to let everybody get to their breakfast or lunch or what have you. All right. So like I said, this is our number 11 of 11. Every single one is recorded. And we had multiple teams doing it. I know Matt and John did a couple. Dan and I, this is our third one. And we had different teams covering kind of every product ServiceNow offers and how that can be applied to the Army. And every single one has a demo, right? And so all the way from CAM, what we're going to go through today, to, hey, let's walk through how to build your first app on App Engine. Or, hey, let's walk through, some customer service management use cases. All of the above. So if you're interested in any of those, you can go ahead and go to this tiny URL on the slide. And we can of course send these slides out so you can just click on it when you're ready for it. All right, so why are we here today, right? So in general, we're talking high level about Army modernization, but really for CAM, it's about how to get to a yes faster with transparency and workflow automation, right? So this is a solution specific to the federal government, doesn't apply to the private sector, which is something, and it is a tedious process. I've been through it many times myself, being on the integrator side for many years. And working, with CISOs and trying to help something that's not always funded the best, get done, right? So the benefits that we're looking to show you today, which Matt is going to get to through his talk and also his demonstration, is the visibility through the ATO process. How can you really come in line with the NIST RMF mandate, which is difficult and costly for a lot of organizations. And then how can you really standardize that, not just for one project, but really across, multiple contract teams, multiple technologies on-prem, in the cloud? How do we get our hands around all of that to really come in compliance with NIST RMF? So, the gist of that is we're trying to help give you guys and show you guys the tools that the Army has the ability to get to help you get to your ATO faster. All right, so this is just a slide to help some folks don't know too much about ServiceNow and where we are in the federal government, specifically on the DoD side. This is where we are. I know Matt and John are currently working specifically with the Army and the Air Force on issues just like the one we're going to talk about today, right? Like how can we do that? But aside from all that, we are helping the Army, from help desk to App Engine to customer service management across here. So just letting you know that there's a lot going on. In case you may not know it, but there may be a ServiceNow installation where you're at helping you right now. You just didn't even know that it was ServiceNow. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Matt take over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Matt, our CAM and RMF expert, take over.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. That was a lot faster than I expected. This is we're double timing. We are double timing. My name is Matt. I'm a security and risk solution architect in our DoD and IC business. I was in the Army once, a very long time ago, but I was in the infantry doing infantry stuff. I didn't learn any computer stuff. And frankly, this was before computers. I know it's early, really early for some of you. I really do appreciate you taking time to join us. It's always very flattering to me when people take time out of their busy schedules, especially this year, to spend it with us. So since we have a pretty intimate group here, right? When you start talking about RMF, you start losing lots of people, and then the people who are interested in it become very passionate about it. I have some slides and I have a way of doing demos, but why don't we keep it kind of conversational? There's certain things I want to get across, but if you have questions or a comment, why don't you just go ahead and shout it out or throw something in the chat. I don't necessarily see chat when I'm presenting, but someone else can see it and pipe in with it.
Yeah, Matt, I can help manage that for you. So if somebody chats something, I can interrupt Matt and try to get that question in there.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
I can watch as well, Matt. And it looks like, again, we did a session 2 weeks ago on our SOAR capabilities. It looks like we've got 2 or 3 folks that actually were on that session with Donna Wallace and Krishna. So we've got a couple of folks that are familiar with your delivery, Matt.
Awesome. Repeat Great. Customers.
Yes.
We got to punch another hole on their card. When you get to 6 webinars, your 7th webinar is free. So today we're really talking about RMF and specifically what ServiceNow can do for you with RMF. So I have a lot of slides here. I'm gonna skip a lot of them, but let's talk about RMF at a high level real quick. In this own words, we know that it's very holistic and comprehensive. And comprehensive is a bit of an understatement. It integrates into the SDLC and it provides processes and, in their own words, tasks for each of the 6 steps. And as we know, plenty of tasks associated with it. And we look at the control space. There's hundreds of controls, but a lot of folks who are new to RMF think that it focuses exclusively on IT systems and cyber. But really, when you start going through the control list and looking at the control families, they really span the entire enterprise. Obviously, there's lots of IT controls, but there's stuff related to your facilities management, your personnel, maintenance, assets. And so when you go through and start taking a look at what it really takes to transform RMF, not to just do it and make your way through it and muddle through it, but really do it efficiently, do it quickly, do it better. Obviously, you need compliance and risk management, right? There's all these controls, and you have to be able to track these controls and where we are with them. And it is the risk management framework. So you need a risk management capability in there. But then we need some way of testing these things. We have all these security control assessors who have to go out and do their assessments. So we need some way of managing these activities and letting them track out where they are. Things. Data. But we also need IT to know these things relate to each other and how they're configured. And we need to be able to watch changes to the systems and change requests and software assets and things like that. But then we also need business systems. We need task management. We need case management. We may need to hook into our learning management and figure out things like are people acknowledging the policies? Are the security briefings being done on time? We may need to look into our facilities management, or in some cases, folks have to do operational tech. So there's a lot of data that needs to come together. But then this stuff also needs to be, combined in a very specific way, right? You need to, we're talking about transforming RMF, not just doing it. So there needs to be a digital experience created from all this. You need deeply embedded processes, and you need visibility that drives all of this. You need that visibility into your assets and your service management and your other systems, your security data. And very importantly, you need the ability to automate this stuff, right? And to do this effectively, you need, of course, reporting, but flexible configuration of that modern experience. You're trying to turn this into something that works well, that people want to use and want to do. And so really, at the end of the day, if you're talking about transforming RMF and really modernizing your approach to RMF, you're talking about bringing a lot of different applications or systems together. And in some environments, in some legacy environments, each one of these little pillars could be a different system with a different support team, different software you have to learn that all needs to be integrated together. And then you're talking about bringing it together in a very valuable way. And this is where customers tell us they have a ton of challenge with legacy approaches using, I'll just call kind of legacy GRC products. They tell us that their systems are just too focused on the technical control management, right? That there isn't enough kind of overall enterprise service business capability. The integrations are very difficult and expensive because they have to integrate everything into this one GRC now. But that only benefits the GRC and the people who use that GRC, right? So they have to duplicate that integration somewhere else, right? And then potentially duplicate it again, or they have to get into really confusing service bus architectures and the sort. And they tell us that the software they're using right now is very often just too closed and proprietary and too rigid. They can't make it do what they want it to do. We've had customers tell us that they actually changed their business processes. They change how they work to accommodate the fact that their software can't change to them. And that greatly displeases them. And obviously this all has an impact on how you execute on RMF, right? We have customers tell us it takes anywhere from 8 to 24 months to get an ATO. I would love to hear some anecdotal numbers from the folks on the call today. If you just want to throw an average number into chat, I would love to get more data, because some customers are doing it right now in 8 months, which I think is fantastic. But then we have customers where it literally takes them years, and that's essentially years of sunk cost, right? That's months to years of where you have a system that's incurring plenty of cost, but not productional, not returning any value. And as a result, right, their time to value and their sustainment cost for some of these GRCs are very high. It's very typical that we find that they have 2 or more FTEs who do nothing but maintain that one GRC system. That's a lot in the grand scheme of things. If you think of every one of those functions being a different system, different software, different manufacturer, different computing environment, right? All of which has to be maintained, that adds up. The worst part of it is, despite all of this kind of effort with the legacy systems, they still aren't automating very much, right? They tell us that these things are very narrowly focused on the control management. So 80% of our total RMF effort is still manual. We had one customer who laughed at the 80% and told us that for their environment is probably more like 90%. So the legacy approach just really isn't working very well. And that's what brings us to our integrated risk management on ServiceNow. Integrated risk management is part of our security and risk portfolio. Now, if you've been in webinars and demos with me before, typically I kind of go through and talk through each block. I'm not going to do that today. I have some I think will help you understand what the source stuff does. But on the risk management side, right, we have that policy and compliance risk audit. We have all this good stuff, all those governance and risk needs. But the beautiful thing is it's built on the ServiceNow platform. So it works very differently than traditional GRC tools, right? This stuff all works together in very deep ways. You get very deep embedded processes within the risk management and outside of risk management with our security operations and with the rest of the ServiceNow platform. And we also have this fantastic ability to continuously monitor anything in the platform. And we can tie that data to controls and risks. Now, it's on the ServiceNow platform, so you get all of that flexibility, all of that platform capability as part of this. So our risk and compliance, our integrated risk management, it is integrated. It operates across the entire platform, right? So now we're talking about taking your traditional IT stuff, IT service management, ops, asset management, your SecOps, right? Maybe your HR stuff, your facility stuff, and being able to operate across all of that in congruent processes on a single platform within integrated risk management. And if you've ever done any configuration work in ServiceNow, or if you're kind of a power user, if you've been in it and been exploring, you know that we have a huge number of these platform capabilities that gives us the ability to essentially customize any process in the software to your actual business process. So as opposed to you changing the way you work because your software can't keep up, we can change the software to how you need to work. So I'd like to pause for a second and see if there are any questions before I proceed to the next slide. All right, so here's the integrated risk management architecture. I know there's a lot of blocks on here, there's a lot going on, but really what this is saying is we have the complete life cycle of control and risk management built in. And what I mean by that is we can take all your policies and procedures and standards, whether they're your internal ones or external ones, pushed down upon you, like RMF and DA directives and PDs. And we can break those down into their smallest empirical items, right? Kind of like reading US law, C18, Title 4, Section 2, Paragraph 3, Clause 2, right? And we can assign that out to everything they excellent. We can assign that out to your IT assets, your processes, your people, your organizations, and we can measure that. So we can measure that by sending out attestations and asking, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you've implemented this control in accordance with, right? And we can measure that by doing audits, right? Control assessments, where a human being is going out and maybe they're taking that test plan data, that 853A data, and they're testing things and they're interviewing things. And we can measure that through our continuous monitoring indicators, where we're building data robots and looking at what's going on in the platform and saying, hey, this is non-compliant data, right? This violates a control or this exceeds a risk. And when that occurs, we can automatically generate issues, right? Essentially a compliance problem, if you will. And from those issues, we can generate remediation tasks and milestones. And all this takes place in the platform, right? None of this is taking multiple spreadsheets and combining them together. None of this is going through email and trying to figure out who sent you what and then going to find another email. This is all digitally transformed. And the impact of that has been pretty huge. Now, we've been investing big time in this product, right? And you can see that the investment on our side just keeps growing. And this has gotten us huge market recognition. This one product, integrated risk management, actually leads 3 different Gartner Magic Quadrants. I didn't even think that was possible. I've been in software for 20 years. I've been in security for 20 years. I've never seen anything like that before. But it leads 3 different Gartner Magic Quadrants. We lead a Forrester Wave. We have other accolades. And going back to that continuous investment, our newest investment is continuous authorization and monitoring, where we take all of those platform capabilities, we take that integrated risk management capabilities, we bring them together to apply them specifically to RMF. So we're adding the additional workflows and control management and things you need specifically for RMF while leveraging everything that was already built in the platform in IRM. So you get that single platform approach, you get that flexibility, you get that visibility that lets you know what's going on anywhere at any time, real-time ground truth, right? And you can automate more of the work that goes into RMF, transform more of it, bring it into the platform, and speed things up. Now within RMF, within CAM, we address all 6 stages plus prepare. So we went through and pretty carefully mapped out 837 and broke it down and figured out the best way we could architect this into ServiceNow in that kind of integrated fashion, like really using the platform in IRM, as opposed to like kind of keeping everything as separate tables and isolated use cases, right? We took the time to make this the best architecture we could. And so we're bringing, out of the box, we're bringing a lot of different capabilities together within CAM. Of course, it is built on the platform. So I've already been going in and configuring little things for customers and showing them how they can customize certain processes to them and the sort. So a couple of key features before we hop over to the demo. One of the things we're doing is setting dynamic boundary filters, so that as opposed to like working off an SSP that's out of date, you can see what's always in your boundary by leveraging the CMDB. We do our impact assessments in the platform. We're managing audit engagements so that you can better manage all the SCA activity. Really big thing is we're building the SSP for you automatically, right? Since you're transforming RMF and you're getting out of spreadsheets and email and moving into the platform, we know everything about the assets and the controls and the risks and the POAMs and the impacts, right? because all that work occurs in the platform now. So we can automatically generate that SSP for you. And with my dummy data, which is pretty small, it takes seconds. With a real system, maybe it takes a couple of minutes, but we've had customers tell us that it can take them 6 months to go through and manually document their system and build that SSP, right? Now, we do that using document templates, which is a new capability that essentially lets you build out a template of information and use variables and say, read this from this field and put it here. And build dynamic documents in a reusable, repeatable fashion. So the cool thing about that is you can use that document templates feature to build artifacts for any purpose you want. Like, let's say you still want to report up through Emass, right? You can do your work in ServiceNow. You can take advantage of all this real-time, live, ground truth and all this work automation, and then spit out those artifacts and keep Emass happy. Of course, we have APIs and orchestration. So we have partners and customers who are right now just building live integrations into Emass to push data up and sync things down. And you get that continuous monitoring where, we're kind of famous for bringing data from around the enterprise together, right? So you get that continuous monitoring where we bring everything going on about the system together and giving you the ability to see it and visualize it and, continuously relate it to controls and risks. So unless there are any questions here, I'll switch over to my browser and start demo. Sound good? All right, bear with me while I...
It's a quiet group here, Matt.
Oh, that's fine. It's early in the morning for some.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second to stop sharing. I have to do this very carefully because the team icons are very small.
Yep.
So let me go ahead and close the PowerPoint. Give me 1 moment. I see several more people have joined us while I was on there talking. Yep. I would just like to say thanks again for joining us. All right, I'm going to make this larger. Do not fret. Okay. Can everyone see this clearly?
A little bit. That's better. Much better.
Okay, that's better. Yeah.
All right. So, we like to start off with dashboards. If you're at all familiar with ServiceNow, then you're probably pretty familiar with our dashboard capabilities. We build lots of dashboards out of the box, right? We build dashboards for every application we have. We build dashboards that combine data together in fun and interesting ways. And with CAM, we're shipping 3 different dashboards: the CAM overview, the AO overview, and the SCA overview. And when I first started working with ServiceNow, I used to go through every widget and explain every single widget. And I realized very quickly that that's not necessary, because the reality is we ship these dashboards as kind of notional content. Here's something out of the box for you. But anyone can configure these dashboards to their heart's delight incredibly easily by clicking this little plus sign over here, the little cross. You can resize, move around, you can remove, you can retitle these report widgets, and you can add new reports from anywhere in the platform created by anyone. You can filter them down and do things like just see the ones you made or just the ones made by your team. And you can add these in incredibly easily. You can also do things like make personal versions of dashboards. You can save dashboards to your favorites. You can assign them to different people based on their roles or based on the views they're in. So really what we're providing is an entire framework for dashboarding and reporting. And making these reports is a piece of cake. I'll just click through very quickly. I won't walk you through the whole thing because I know we don't have a huge amount of time today. But this is what it looks like to build a report. Basically, if you can build a chart in Excel, you can build a report in ServiceNow. You don't have to understand databases or programming or JavaScript or anything. You pick the data you want to report on. You pick one of our visualizations, right? You configure things like how you want to sort and group it, and you filter it, and then you save it and you share it, and it can be added to a dashboard. So now, instead of walking people through every tile and every tab, I just show them how easy it is to make these dashboards exactly how you want them to look. And this is a really big deal because remember, if you have all of your service management, and by that I mean things like change requests, incidents, problems, you have your security data, you have that CMDB, the almighty CMDB, you have your risk, your policy, everything in one platform. That means you can visualize it all and you can report on it all. And there's more value, there's more power to that than it initially sounds like, because a lot of organizations really struggle to get the metrics and the reporting and the visualizations they really want. So that's our dashboards kind of out of the box. Let's move into CAM specifically. Within CAM, really, we have authorization boundaries and we have authorization packages. And the rest of this is really just kind of showing individual work and individual tasks, then letting you configure certain things. So we'll take a look at this one HR boundary, right? Here I can see that it's under development. Oops.
Make it just a little bit bigger, Matt. If you could.
Yep. Thanks. And so here's our authorization boundary, right? And this is really kind of part of the prepare step. Of course, we have roles and users and assignments, and you can upload diagrams. We let you build boundary filters to define what the boundary actually is. And so as an example, I have this filter that's looking for all IT assets across our enterprise in a specific subnet. This is querying the CMDB. And the way the CMDB works is its schema goes from very inclusive down to very specific. So there's things in the CMDB for telephones, switches, PBXs, servers, routers, right? And you can be as broad or as specific as you want. So here I'm going very broad. I'm saying look at everything that has an IP address within this subnet, right? That's our assigned subnet. We know within our agency, if it's in this Class B network here, it's part of our boundary. And it's telling me how many CIs match that. This is the standard condition builder in ServiceNow. I can add as many conditions here as I want and really stack them up and make this filter very specific. And we can have multiple filters. So here I have another where instead of just saying look at everything, I was more specific. I said look at Windows servers, and if their location is in San Diego, then count those, add those in as part of our boundary. And here we can see the actual elements that are brought in. We can see that most of these were brought in through those boundary filters, but we also have the ability to individually tailor this and add things kind of one by one. So we can see that I brought in this Unix server from somewhere else manually. So this is how we let you dynamically define your boundary. Any questions there before I move on? So let's move on to authorization packages. Now, for demonstration purposes only, any of us who are ever in the Army know those terms, right? For test purposes. For demonstration purposes, I've built out multiple packages. And that's because per RMF, as you move through different stages, you request approvals and the AO and other folks approve things. And then we lock that stage down so someone can't go back and tamper with something without getting approval again. So I've created packages here in different stages. I'm going to move over to the categorize one. Now, within categorize, we've already done some of the basic prepare steps. We've assigned, again, more roles, the ISOs, the ISOM, the AOs. We've done a PTA and a PIA. And here we've answered no to all of our PTA questions. So no impact assessment is necessary. If I answer yes, it says, well, now you need to do a privacy impact assessment, right? You chose poorly. I can assign the respondent to the assessment here, and then I can send the assessment right from here. The respondent gets that assessment within their login. They go and they complete the privacy impact assessment, all right? 20, 30 different questions about what kind of data, where does it come from, how do you protect it? And the results of that assessment come back right here. So you can review the PIA You can execute the PIA, view the PIA, as well as other types of impact assessments, right, without having to leave the platform. Now, very specifically within Categorize, what we're getting to here is selecting our information types. So of course we have.
Matt, you're still pretty small here. There you go. Great.
Thanks. So here we have, all the different information types you can select for your package. And as you do this, we start assigning the baseline controls. Now, within these information types, they have individual CIA impacts. You can tailor those impacts at this stage. Of course, all of this goes into generating the system impact. You can tailor that as well. There may be a justification needed. So you get that flexibility here. As you move into the select phase, I'm going to kind of switch tabs here. I'll make it larger. As we move into the select phase now, we take that system impact, we assign the baseline controls, and then you can tailor these. You can leave it as is, saying yes, this control applies to us. You can say, this doesn't apply to us. This is kind of NA. We're not going to implement this. In which case, we move that control over here and we show you which ones you've said are not applicable. You can choose to inherit a control, or you can choose to provide a control to be inherited by someone else and be that common control provider. Now, I will say that when you are providing a control, it isn't actually available to other packages, other boundaries, until you yourself are authorized, right? And when you go to inherit controls, you specify who you're inheriting from. And the cool thing is, this is all in ServiceNow, so you get full visibility of this control. We can see right here that it's already marked as compliant. We can see where it's coming from and who owns it. But we get full visibility of that control, just as if it were one of our own. So there's no guesswork as to, are we really doing the right thing by inheriting these things? Are they really being managed the right way? At the end of all the tailoring, we also have control overlays. You can build your own overlays by going into policy and building them out, and then you can select which ones you want to leverage right there. And these overlays themselves also add controls. So now we have the net result of all the controls you have to do. At that point, we move them to implement. The system owner, the developers, everyone else goes around and does a whole bunch of work. And then when they're ready, when they say, okay, we're ready, we can start that assessment phase, which is really about going out and making sure these controls are effective. Now, we do this within ServiceNow by leveraging our audit module capabilities. And what that does is it brings the act of going out and assessing controls and treats it as kind of a project with associated tasks and timeframes and the ability to delegate, and go out and get evidence and mark notes, have that kind of case management, and really capture all the work that goes into that assessment in one tidy place. So here we can see, as an example, that we've really just begun. We're only 4% through the whole thing. We have, we planned to end it a couple of days ago. That's not going so well, but that's probably very realistic. And if I dig into the assessment engagement, here we have the entity we're assessing. We have all the controls. Now, in the cases where we have test plans, if you want to go in and add test plans to the control to be very prescriptive and say, hey, you need to look at this and determine if it does this, this, or that. Your test plan may say, hey, take a screenshot and make sure everything has this code by it. Or the test plan could be, go interview the people and ask them these specific questions. In those cases, when we have those test plans, we'll use them and generate the audit tasks with those test plans. And so here we have the net effect of everything that has to be assessed. And so let's see if I can open these into new tabs for you. So again, we get the individual progress on this. You get that full visibility throughout the whole application. And here we have a control test. We're assessing this control against this system. We have a design test. Here's our test information. I just took this right from 853A. That content is out there and available for you. In all honesty, it's pretty obtuse, right? 853A really just mostly says, well, you can examine things and you can interview people and you can test things, but it doesn't really teach you how to test or how to examine. So I would expect that your control assessors already have a lot of good detailed information around what they go look for. We have the operational test, and we can see that these have been marked effective. Therefore, this control has been marked effective. We can see that there's a life cycle to this, all of which can be configured and accommodating to your processes. Now, here's another control test where we say, okay, well, we're overdue on this. And if we look at the design test, this thing's been marked ineffective, right? And it has been closed out. And again, the sum result of all of this stuff is being reflected at the high level here. Here we go. Is being reflected at the high level here in this audit engagement. And this audit engagement is all part of this packet. So I think this is a really good example of how ServiceNow can help automate and manage and drive visibility, drive normalization, some process normalization of all the different activities, but relate it all together in a way where you really get that visibility you need to effectively manage this stuff. And without the very tedious hour-burning process of chasing down data constantly. Right. I've lived that world. I've been a government contractor, and I've worked in some very interesting DoD environments. And I know what it's like to have to constantly dig around and call people and hit Slack and go, hey, where are we on this? What's the deal with that? Now, this isn't the end of RMF. You do all your assessments, and then eventually someone has to make that risk decision, right? I will make this larger. So eventually, an AO or DAO has to look at the sum total of all this effort of looking at our deep asset configuration, looking at the controls, the risk plans, the control status, the POEMs. And they have to make a risk decision based on this. Now, again, because so much of this work now is transformed, digitally transformed and brought into the platform, it's all available. So we can bring it all together in a single view. So for instance, here now I'm almost doing continuous monitoring. I've got vulnerabilities coming in from all over the place. I have my POEMs that were generated as a result of continuous monitoring or as a result of that audit engagement, right? I have IT issues and tasks and the sort. But the cool thing is, since we have all of that, again, we can bring it all together to generate that SSP for you. And this is using a document template. I will tell you that out of the box, we used a FedRAMP template that we found online, probably off like gsa.gov. So out of the box, this SSP is probably not going to look the way you want it. I'm sure you're going to want your logos and of course your organizational names of the sort. But this is a document template where you can go in and modify that document to look exactly as you like and generate these SSPs automatically on your side as well. And you can use those documents for other purposes. So for instance, it's very easy to go into ServiceNow and do things like say, spit out a spreadsheet that looks just like this for me, because I'm going to upload that into Emass, right? Or, the general wants this kind of report, build it, design it, and have the platform spit it out for you automatically. When you authorize a system, you can go old school and you can authorize it for a fixed period of time, right? And say, hey, you're good to go for 3 years. Nothing's going to change in 3 years. Or you can take a slightly more modern approach and saying this is an ongoing authorization. And as long as you are addressing those risks and staying compliant, you're authorized. But when you stop addressing those risks and being compliant, you're no longer authorized, and really do it more as like an IATO or a PATO. So that's how CAM uses that ServiceNow platform, uses all of that deep automation and compliance and risk management within our IRM to bring it together specifically for RMF. You don't lose anything. This comes with IRM, right? So you get all the IRM capabilities, which is just a plethora of automation. I mean, honestly, that's another hour and a half demo, just going in and showing everything IRM brings to the table. This is, I think of this as the layer on top, almost like a presentation layer that brings it all together in that RMF specific context. So with that said, I'd like to stop and take questions.
I think everybody's excited, Matt.
Or still on the, I'm still on my first cup of coffee.
Oh, I know. So does this make sense? You know, for those of you on the phone, are any of you living this process day to day where you think this could help?
Let's try a different way. How many people know where the 3 different buttons in Microsoft Teams are?
We do have one question, Matt, about an integration with Emass, or maybe talking about if that's been done before.
It's actually being done right now. We have a partner, and John, I guess it's okay to name names.
Absolutely,
right?
Sure.
Yeah. So we developed this in conjunction with partners and customers. You know, obviously, doing something like transforming RMF isn't something you do in a vacuum. It takes a lot of experienced eyes and ears contributing to it. And so we've been working with the Central Federal Services as we build this out, and they've been automating RMF for customers for a while now on our IRM product. And they're moving to this new CAM product right now. And again, it's a separate application, but it's not a separate purchase or a separate SKU. So if you have IRM Pro or Enterprise right now, you are entitled to use this CAM. But the Accenture has been building this out for customers for a while with some amazing results. I mean, they got time to ATO reduced by like 70% for a customer, and I think that was also as part of like an IL5 migration. And they are already kind of what I call just generating those Emass artifacts and generating the spreadsheets and the stuff that you have to generate now, right? The system generates it automatically. So yes, you still have to go over to Emass and log in and upload your files, but you don't have the days, weeks it takes to generate those files. And they are working on right now using our out-of-the-box orchestration capabilities and our ability to interact with APIs and things like that. And they're using the Emass APIs to build that Emass integration. So that's a live integration. We're also aware of other customers doing that. Now that's where we can't really name names. But yeah, the Emass integration is absolutely feasible, and it's rapidly becoming reality for lots of folks.
So Matt, I'll ask a question. So let's say you're a customer or an agency that has, let's just say you have ITSM and a well-established CMDB. What would it take to get from that state to some of the stuff you just demoed today?
That's a really good question. So let me say this. And Casey, I know you've worked with ServiceNow for a very long time.
Yep.
And I think you have a pretty robust IT management background. I've been a security guy for literally decades now, and always on the red team side of things, and kind of offensive and very, very technical, like source code analysis type stuff. When I came to ServiceNow, I genuinely had no idea how important that CMDB and that IT management layer was to everything. But that CMDB is, it's like a miracle. It's really fundamental to everything. I think of it from very primitive infantryman terms. you can't shoot what you can't see, right? So we got to have those nods. We got to have that night vision capability, and that CMDB like gives that night vision capability to. So yes, I think it's very important to all of this. Is it 1,000% critical? Absolutely not. So for instance, with RMFKC, this process is so burdensome and so slow and so expensive that a lot of times the process starts before things are even purchased. And I've heard in my own agencies, I've heard program managers sit there and make hosting decisions and technology decisions based on RMF. Like, hey, we're, if this environment can give us these shared controls to inherit that I don't have to do myself, then we're going to move there. So you don't want to wait until that system development hits a certain stage before you actually start the RMF process, right? You're supposed to start that planning right from inception. So even within the concept of IRM and CAM, right, you have the ability to go in and kind of create like ghost entries for CMDB and say like, this is what we think the boundary will look like, and this is what we're planning on. But who knows? At the end of the day, some of those Windows servers might become Linux servers, and we need to change that around. But I feel like that CMDB and that service management layer is fundamental to almost anything IT related. But I would love to hear our audience's feedback on that. I'm one person and I have one perspective. We have other people here with lots of different perspectives I would love to hear from. It is a quiet audience today. I'm not used to that. Usually the security and risk folks are chatterboxes.
Well, it's a dreary day here, East Coast here, Northeast, so Mid-Atlantic. So
it is.
Maybe that's an impact. But obviously, if anybody has questions here, we're available to answer. We've got additional materials. We're happy to go into a more detailed demo specific to your requirements. Obviously, we've got a number of folks from different organizations here. But we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, so I'll ask one more question since everybody's being so quiet. So yeah, trying to go from the I guess more average ServiceNow government customer. So if you want it, you mentioned that this is included with some existing licenses. Can you purchase this separately, or is it required to get the Pro version?
So it's not a separate SKU that you buy on your own. It comes with IRM Pro and Enterprise, and it needs that IRM. CAM is not a standalone application, and frankly, we feel that that's a big part of the value behind it. Is a standalone application would kind of break some of those concepts of visibility and integration that customers are complaining about.
Mm-hmm.
So this absolutely leverages IRM. Now, it can exist if you don't have IT service management or you don't have IT operations management or security operations this sort. Those aren't critical to it, but it is built into IRM.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Matt.
No, thank you. Would everyone like to see a continuous monitoring indicator?
I would.
Casey's so good to me. Let's take a look at some indicators. This is a great capability in IRM. Let's just give this a moment to load up. I'm going to close my 52 other tabs. I've noticed in general my browser works better when I don't ask it to do 5 million things at once. And here's a nice risk dashboard. You can see heat maps and the sort. So let's take a look at an indicator here. I'll just sort this list. Let's see, higher critical vulnerabilities should be addressed within 15 calendar days. Let's take a look at that. That one sounds interesting. So this one is going to be leveraging our vulnerability management module. So you may not realize this if you're very focused on RMF, but we have SOAR capabilities: security, orchestration, automation, and response. And what this means is helping the security people do their job faster. It doesn't mean going out and scanning for vulnerabilities. It doesn't mean looking for network events. There's a lot of technology out there that does that, but that technology doesn't help you respond and mitigate things. So we bring those things in. We bring your ACAS results in. We bring your Splunk in. We orchestrate around it. We drive workflows around it and help you remediate and respond to everything faster. So this one here is going to be using our vulnerability data coming into the platform. It's one integration. It's an out-of-the-box integration with ACAS. Tenable built it themselves and maintained it themselves for quite a while, but since this is what we refer to as a gold standard integration, we're actually taking it over and we're going to be maintaining it ourselves. And the way these indicators work is they are tied to a control or a risk. And here we can see that the controller risk name is higher critical vulnerabilities must be remediated quickly, etc. They operate on a scheduled time frame. I'll override the template here. These are generated by templates and then instantiated automatically, so you don't have to build these out 100 times. They can operate on a schedule. Here it's operating daily. They can be basic, where you're using condition builders, where they can be scripted, or they can be tied automatically to a configuration test, which brings me to another module called configuration compliance. Now, if you've ever worked with CMDB, you may have heard that term before. Configuration compliance meaning, are we doing the proper care and feeding of our CMDB and making sure that this has the hygiene it needs to be constantly accurate and up to date? In the security context, when we say configuration compliance, we mean, are your computers configured properly? So this is where your security folks are going out there and they're scanning with SCAP scanners and Steel Cloud and all this other stuff. They're making sure that the registry keys are set the right way and the guest account is disabled, etc. Our configuration compliance module brings that data in. So again, we're elevating that data to this enterprise service layer now. So we can let you see what failed. We can let you visualize it, report on it, and drive remediation workflows around it. And in this case, those specific tests can also be mapped to risks and controls. So you can see how those failures impact your total enterprise risk. Now, this one is using a basic construction, which means, again, we're using that condition builder, the almighty condition builder. I love this. This is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. This allows you, right? These condition builders essentially allows you to build out really complex SQL queries without even realizing it. If you've ever used these and you've gone and you've built little conditions and said, I need the data that looks like this, where this field is different than that, and this field is between these values, you're under the hood. It's generating very complex SQL queries. You're doing it by clicking and typing things in. So what we're doing here is we're looking at our vulnerabilities, our vulnerable items table. And we're saying, hey, we want you to look for these specific values. If the state of the vulnerability is in review, meaning it hasn't been resolved, it hasn't been deferred or accepted, it hasn't been remediated and closed, in the 5 days, we have a problem. And we want you to bring evidence back, automatic evidence collection. And this is saying, this is the evidence we want you to bring back. Bring this data back itself. When this fails, the evidence comes back. Scroll with me. Interesting. I'm losing my ability to scroll. So when this fails, the evidence comes back in at the bottom. So you have the opportunity to review the evidence and see what's going on. And it automatically trips that controller risk. Now, kind of going back to that architecture slide with all the blocks, when the controller risk is tripped for any reason, whether it's from continuous monitoring or a SCA or some external event, right? You have that whole chain of process that drives behind that, generating the issue, letting someone know there's a problem, assigning that to people, choosing to accept or remediate the risk with flows behind that, tasks, milestones, etc. And so We handle this all on the platform on a single continuous basis. Those are indicators.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Casey.
Okay, well, I'll give everybody about 10 more seconds to see if there are any other questions. You can post in the chat if you don't want to go off mute. Or I'll give a big thank you to John and Matt for facilitating today and giving us a great demo of what the art of the possible is today.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate you inviting me, and I really do appreciate the fact that so many folks took time out of the crazy schedules to join us today. You have my sincere thanks.
Yes, and mine too. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you. Yeah, everybody, if you're on the West Coast, enjoy maybe some breakfast or another coffee. If you're on the East Coast, we can go ahead and have some lunch. So thanks, everybody, for joining today, and we will send out the recording and the PowerPoint to those who attended.